Hi everybody, welcome back. This is Phil Dimitriadis, and today I thought I would do another demo talking about how to create some cool brushes and using the brush presets and how to save your brushes. I've been talking to some students about how to do that, and there's a couple little techniques I thought I'd show. Personally, what I like to do is I like finding fabrics and textures, and I also have recently I've created a lot of really cool brushes from this right here, from looking at tree canopies. The thing that I like about tree canopies is they already have natural arrangements and textures of leaves and patterns, and they sort of go in gradients from like dark to light leaves. So I could take any little swab of this part of a photo, or a piece of fabric, or here's another piece of like a cloth fabric, or even canopies like this. I accidentally created a great cloud brush and painting brush the other day just from experimenting with some tree canopies. And again, what I like about this is it has little pits of dark and light, and then if you look closely, you're going to have little highlights and dark lights, and that's what I find makes a really fantastic texture brush, is the fact that you can take there's natural little spots here that are going to work more in your benefit, because you need to think about it like this. When you create a brush, an area that's pure black is going to have more of the paint coming through the brush, and then little gradients of dark and light. So the lighter you go, that's going to be less paint getting through. So if you get anything that has sort of a texture feel to it, you're going to have a more beneficial outcome from that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these samples right here. I'm just going to drop them into Photoshop. Let's open those up. Okay, and let me start over here. Let's start with this texture that I have right here. Okay, so I'm just going to double click on this, select all. I'm going to copy that, and I just have a big white image right here. What I'm going to do is hit paste. Okay, let's transform. This is a 300 dpi image here right now, and so I'm going to just go ahead and select part of this and define it as a brush preset. Okay, now when it defines as a brush preset, it's going to immediately drop it into a black and white value. So if I want, I can come over here. If I go to Control H, or excuse me, Control U for hue and saturation, and I drop the saturation out, I can get a better idea of part of the pattern that might be seen. Remember, the black areas are where ink is going to travel through more, and the white areas where there's going to be a little bit less. So let's just see what happens right now if I select this. I'm going to come in here and select this little portion right here. Okay, and I'm going to come over here down under Edit here, and go to Define Brush Preset. I'm going to label this EXP for number 1, experiment number 1, and I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and turn this layer off, and I'm going to paint on another layer to see what that brush looks like. I like to use something with color. Don't use just black and white. Come over here, grab a little, I like orange sometimes, or like a darker burnt umber in there. And what I'm going to do now is come back over, select my brush by right-clicking on my mouse, and if you look right there, I have EXP1 right now. And so if I come over and select that, and if I just tap once, you can see sort of the effect I'm getting. So the only downfall is as I go to paint right now, this brush is just going to stay constant. It's not going to move, as you can see that. So and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on how you want to use. I personally don't like that. I like it when a brush flips around and rotates and and shows me different angles. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to bring up my brush presets. To find the brush presets, there's two ways that I can get there. One, I come over here to Window, and I can scroll down to Brush Presets. The other way is I can just hit F5. And so by hitting F5 on my keyboard, it brings up this brush that I've just created. And if I look down here, I have all these different shape dynamics, or excuse me, all these preset options, shape dynamics, scattering, texture, all of these that I can go in there and immediately apply. There's a couple that I like offhand that I use on a regular basis. Let's just start off with shape dynamics. I mean, I could come over here. I have this set on control for pen pressure. I can adjust the diameter, and what's really important is I take a look at how that brush is being magnified or changed right here. The angle jitter is really important to me. That's something I use all the time. So look at what happens. Once I turn that, it's now going to rotate my brush every time I'm stamping on the canvas, and it's going to create sort of a different feel. Let's come down here. I have a roundness jitter. Let's just say we put that on pen pressure. Let's take a look at what that does. See that? I'm adjusting the thickness of that as it's moving through. It's endless. There's so many different options that you can mess with. Let's come down and take a look at texture. I had a texture that's already set in here. Let's say I'm going to keep that, scale it down a little bit, and I like, another item I like is transfer. And the reason why I like transfer is it creates that sort of dark and the light pass. It allows me to get some nice gradations as I'm painting. Okay, let's take a look at this and see what happens if I modify this a teeny bit here. There we go. So if I make that if I go raise the control there, it's really solid. I like to have a little bit of that dark to light fade off right in there. Okay. Let's take a look at what else here. You just have to experiment. Wet edges, I could try that. So let me come over here now and see what my brush is going to look like as I paint. So look, as soon as I touch, the brush is automatically spinning. Do you see that? Every time I touch down. And that's sort of a neat effect. Now where that's going to come in handy, what I mentioned to you guys before, is whenever you create a brush, you want to be able to paint with your brush at 100% opacity and see what it does. Okay? And then you also want to come in and paint with it at 50% opacity to see what happens when it's in a much lighter state. That way when you drag back on top of it, you can see the effect. And you can see I have this sort of weird pattern that's actually happening. You know what's pretty cool about that is I could use that. I'm trying to see what kind of texture that might work for me. Then I just drop it down to like a 30% grade and see what happens if I start to block in. So what I don't like about it is it has these little square angles on it, and so in that particular case I might dump the brush and go work on something else. Okay, which there's nothing wrong with doing. It's just all personal preference. So let me select everything on that layer. Let's delete. So I always get that question, Phil, how do I delete a brush? Well, you have to come over here. When you right click on your brushes, click on the little gearbox upper right hand corner, go down to your brush preset manager. When I select that preset manager, it shows me all my brushes right here. On the very bottom is EXP. So the preset manager, let's say I really like that brush I just created, number one, I could grab it and drag it and move it all the way up to the beginning, so when I right click on my brushes, it'll be at the top of my brush list, which is very convenient. Or I can just select it right now, go up to delete, and now it's gone. Okay, and if I hit done, there it is. Even though the brush is in the memory here, if I come back up and look under my brushes, it's gone. So it just happens to be in the computer memory for a little bit. So let's talk about creating another brush here really quick. See if we can create something really cool today. I mentioned the tree canopies. That's something that I really like to mess with quite a bit. So let me come over here and let me take a selection like right in here like this. I'm going to copy that, and let's go back to our page here. Let's paste that in here. And what I'm going to do, let's just see what happens if I come over here right now. I'm just going to select this little area right in here. Okay, there it goes. It's selected. Now, before I had those edges, right? I didn't like those edges. Every time the brush was spinning, I got those hard edges. So what I'm going to do now is come in here with my eraser, okay? And I'm going to just erase around some of this and lighten up so I don't have these really hard edges in here. So I'm going to come in at like 40% and just sort of lightly stamp some of this off, and I'm going to try to round this off just a little bit. Okay. Get rid of some of those really hard to find. There you go, almost done. There we go, almost finished here. Now I'm at 100%, just going through and getting some of this, really trying to get it just to blend in a little bit. Okay, let's say that's pretty cool. I like that, right? Let's select it. Let's go over to edit. Okay, let's scroll down here and let's go to define brush preset. Okay, there it is. I'm going to call this EXP1 again, so I have it available. There it is. Okay, and then now I'm just going to delete what's there, deselect. Let's come over here. Let's bring up our brush. Let's try it. Scroll down here, EXP1, and there's my brush now. Okay, so when you look at it, look, it's painting just a color version in black and white because I have that, the orange, that sort of orange umbra color there. And let's just see what happens when I go to paint with this, what kind of effects I might have. And this is one of the things I tend to like about the tree canopies, the little roughness and the natural gradient variance inside the leaves make for sort of good painting brushes to get some really nice textures to come out. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I like that, and I haven't even messed with it yet. I want to come over to shape dynamics. Again, I really like having a little bit of an angle jitter in there, so now I'm spinning that brush as it's rotating. Put a little bit of roundness jitter on there too. I'm going to leave texture alone. Dual brush allows you to come in and have a secondary brush that's affecting that one if you wanted to. I'm just going to keep transfer on. Let me go into transfer. Let's put this on pen pressure. Let me see if I can see what happens now. If I mess with this a little bit, see what my brush looks like. It's on painting. So once again, I want to start off, I'm at 100%, and then I want to drop down to 50 and see what happens when I'm at 50. And that's actually pretty cool. Look at how it's every time I touch, it rotates. See that? And it has a nice sort of soft feel inside that brush. So the fact that I already went inside here right now and I've changed some of the preset settings, what I need to do is I need to come back in here and save this, okay? It's not going to save it for me. As soon as I right-click and select another brush, that brush is going to be gone. And I'm just going to have the base EXP there. So what I can do right now is if I come over here and I select, okay, I can create a new brush preset, and I can call this EXP Final, let's say. Okay. Oops, can't type today. So EXP Final, now that I've done that, okay, and if I come down here and look, it's on my brushes. Okay, sorry, you can't see my brushes. Let me try that again. Let me raise this up a little bit. So it's, hold on a minute. There we go. Now we can see it. So on the bottom of my list, there it is. It's EXP Final. So if I click EXP1, you'll notice that it's not rotating anymore. It's the original brush preset that I defined. But if I come back in here, and if I scroll down and go to EXP Final, that one's not going to be. That one's going to have the same adjustments that I just made previously. Okay? All right, so that's a texture. What happens if we don't want to use a texture? What if we just want to do something like this? What if I just take a brush and I just dabble around like that? And that's it. What if I come over here and if I take my marquee, I select that area, I hit the move tool, hit V, it's going to select part of that selection. In fact, let's just do the whole thing and see what happens if I just select that right here. Okay, edit and define brush preset. Okay, and there it is. Okay, I'm going to delete what's right there. So now I've created another brush based off of just that original pattern that I have right there. And look at that. See how cool that is? I never thought I would get that look or that feel just by stamping that other brush down. Now I have this really neat looking sort of texture pattern right there. So now let's see what happens when I come in and paint. Okay. And that's actually pretty nice. That's going to be a nice little, that can be a really cool little texture brush that I could use. I can get in there and really get some, every time I touch, I get that sort of weird texture. Again, let's go to shape dynamics. Let me mess with this a little bit. I want to turn on, let's get the angle jitter. Let's get that rotating in there. Look, every time I touch now, it's rotating to a different point. Okay, I like that. That way that's a great way to sort of blend in some textures. And let's go over here. Let me see. Let me check out scattering. What if I see if I can open up the scattering a little bit on this? Put this also. I could do it on fade where it automatically fades off. Let's see what that looks like. So it's going to sort of not only rotate, but then it's going to sort of, you know, part of that's going to just lightly fade off and go away. Look at that. That's pretty cool. Okay, like that. What if let's go back to pen pressure. All right, that's pretty cool. So you have this nice little textured. Let's see if I can use that today to maybe paint some concrete. So I'm going to save that. So I need to save it real quick. I've created a brush now I like. There's some really cool effects happening with it. Okay. Go back here. Let me check a couple things here. Let me see. I wanted to modify something else on it. I was getting picky. I had an idea for something else that I thought I might adjust. Pen pressure. Let's see what happens there. Okay, there we go. I think I'm just going to leave it like that. I like what's happening there. Let me take a look at it. Let's go back to that angle jitter. Just move that around there. That's what I like that stroke path there. Okay, there we go. So now I'm going to define that. So let's right click over here. Let's new brush preset. Okay, I'm going to call that EXP texture. There we go. Okay, and then once I come back over and I right click and I look, there it is, EXP texture. It's down there. Now, you have to remember too, if I wanted to close Photoshop right now, depending on the machine that you're on at home or whatnot, I would possibly lose all the brushes I just created. I know on our machines inside this classroom, that would happen because it doesn't remember any of your previous files. So I would need to save my brushes now as a file themselves. So to do that, I'm going to click on that gear and come back over here. And I'm going to say Save Brushes and then just place them on the desktop and it would be done. And they'd be saved. Okay? All right. So there it is. We've created some cool brushes. And this is endless, you guys. You can create tons of brushes constantly. You can work from, different, whatever you have an idea for, you can come up with something and put it together. I like every now and then if I'm bored at home, I got nothing to do, I'll search around, I'll go to a couple different sites, or I trade brushes with some fellow, artists in the industry, and then I have something that I can use and manipulate and use to my own benefit. So we tried that one. I could go in. I was sort of curious what would happen if I mess with that fabric, but you get the point. Just, you can do it yourself. And I do want to try that tree canopy there. Let's do that real quick. So let me select this. I want to get, look at that. That's a great, because look, there's already natural areas in there that are coming through. So I'm going to copy that. Let's go back here, select all. Let's delete that. I'm going to paste that tree canopy in there. Okay, I want to enlarge it just a little bit like so. And I could still manipulate this. I can erase from this. I can add to it, subtract, all the other, everything else applies. And then when I'm ready, I can just select it in here. Again, I want to get rid of some of the hard edges. So I'm just going to come over here and sort of do this. You don't want a hard edge coming through some of your paint, right? There, after I get some of that down, now I'm going to come in at like 40% and lightly hit around some of these corners and see what happens. Stipple effect, right? Yeah, why not? There, that's pretty good. Okay, I'm going to come over here. Let's say I don't like that. I might stamp that out. Just being picky. There we go. A little blend in there. There we go. Done. Select that right now. Okay. And edit, define brush preset. Okay. I'm going to call this thick texture. But you know what? I'm going to put EXP on the front of it so I know it's one of the ones I was goofing around with today. There it is. It's done. Let's delete that. Oops. Deselect. Let's go to my brush menu. Scroll down here. There's my thick texture. Let's see what that looks like when I hit that down at 100%. Pretty thick texture. Let's see what it does when I go to paint with that. So that's pretty cool. See that? How it overlaps itself and it creates sort of a neat little texture in there. Look at that. That's nice. I can use that and manipulate that lots of different ways. And I haven't even messed with anything in here yet. Again, I like angle jitter, just personal. See if that makes any. Actually, I sort of like the way it was there before, so I'm actually just, I'm just going to select it now and just come back and touch it, and it's going to go right back to where it was. Okay, that's it. Okay, all right, so now I'm going to go ahead and save my brushes so they're in there. So remember, you create those new brushes, you're going to have to save them. So you want to click on that, click on your brush right here, bring up your brushes, click on the gearbox, come down here, and let's, you could go down here and just say save brushes. It's done. Now, another thing too, in the preset manager, okay, just to walk you through this, a little reminder, this is how I like looking at my brushes, I like seeing the name of the brush, and then I like seeing the swab. If this isn't how you like it, click on the gearbox right here, and look, you have all these other options. You have a small thumbnail. You see that? You can see just your brushes only. Sometimes I do that if I'm working on my laptop where I have limited space. If I want to look at the large thumbnail, look at that. It shows me the brush itself and the texture and what it looks like. Okay, if you want to click on that gearbox and you could say small list, that's too small for my eyes at least. If I click down to large list, that's what I tend to work with. And then you also have the stroke thumbnail. I know a lot of artists that like to look at that stroke and see how their brush is, looking as if they were to go across and what kind of texture it's going to create. That's very beneficial too. Okay, and you could also do that same thing, okay, when you open up that brush preset. So if I click on the preset manager, and let me minimize this down so we can see it in the window here. So let's say I'm organizing and deleting brushes right now. Let's say I want to grab a brush, rename it, anything I want to do. Like I can touch a brush right here, and I could just say, I actually don't want to rename this brush because I can't pronounce that German name there. But I love that brush, and that's how I remember it. Those 3 brushes are really fun texture brushes. That's my cloud tree canopy brush I created recently that I use quite a bit. And then there's a whole bunch of other brushes there that I've just been using off and on. Okay, and so I just come over here. I can select one of these. I can rename it, or I can delete it. I can grab it. I can move it up on the list, put it up above. And the other thing that I could do too is if I don't like looking at that view, I could come back over and I could even change the view in the brush preset manager as well and arrange brushes accordingly. Okay, it's completely up to you. And look, even under preset type, I also have swatches, gradients, patterns, other little options in here too. But I pretty much use the preset manager just for my brushes. Okay, all right. So let me come back here. Let's put this on my personal preference, which is that large list, and I'm just going to hit done and close it out. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and end this demo right here and get it rendering, and then I'm going to do the next demo on painting some stone spheres, and we'll be right back.